How long does it take to get for you to change the status from I-140 to approved once it goes to the Department of State, to the National Visa Center? What is the timing, Chris?
Yeah, the short answer is we're normally seeing something like 4 to 6 months from the approval of the I-140 for a nurse whose visa category EB3 is current. We're seeing about 4 to 6 months, but there's an enormous variance with that. And the variance is at least on in two dimensions. So the first dimension is we have seen some very inconsistent processing from the service center approval, delivering the petition from the service center to the National Visa Center. We've seen that, especially out of the Texas Service Center, sometimes take months, really with not much of a reason other than the excuse that Mike and I have heard from the U.S. government all the time over the last 3 years almost, which is, when they do something poorly, they just simply say the word COVID, and they seem to think that gets them out of any sort of work. So that's one variance that can extend that 4 to 6 months, unfortunately longer. And then the second variance is the local embassy themselves. Sometimes the embassies are backlogged. Sometimes they're shut down for local reasons, either staffing reasons, maybe, sometimes they're shut down for holidays, natural disasters, these kinds of things. So it's another one that can extend it out. So I'd say anything in the 4 to 6 month range is absolutely normal. Even getting a little beyond that isn't unusual. And then once you get far beyond that, that's when we start to get concerned that the case is somehow stuck in the process.
So, Chris, if a case is stuck in the process, what can be done about that?
Yeah. So the first thing is to show up to your place of worship and pray, because it's a difficult one to.
Chris, is that your legal advice? Pray?
Oh yeah, no. Mike and I took that class. I took it a year or two after he did in law school.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. Light a candle, make a prayer, something. If that doesn't work, then it's really just, in my mind, brute force on the lawyer side, sometimes on your side as a nurse, and sometimes on the employer side. And what I mean by brute force is, once a week or so, once every other week, we are, trying to follow up, mainly through emails. A lot of these agencies have really gotten away from any ability to call them, which is frustrating. And then in extreme situations, we bring in what we call congressional help. So the U.S. government typically, although not actually right now, has a House of Representatives that is in session, and each district, roughly each city in the United States, has a House member who's in Congress in Washington, D.C., and then they have staffs both in Washington, D.C. and locally here. And we will work with the local staff at the facility that you're working at. So, for instance, if you're going to a facility in St. Louis, Missouri, we would work with the local congressman or congresswoman in St. Louis. We'd work with her office to contact both USCIS and the State Department to try and get that case nudged and pushed back into the normal processing flow.
Yeah. And I can say even from Kinetic's side that we have had, sometimes this happens. I know, Chris and Mike, you've seen these things happen, unfortunately, in your experience. But we have had success by going through congressional means and measures to try and nudge those cases when they do get stuck in the process. And I jest, but of course, definitely pray to make sure that those cases get through.